Well, I mean, it's obviously been successful. Hey folks, it's Finn. Welcome back folks, lovely to see you. Today's video, I want to talk about being at the end of gender transition, as I now am. So it's taken me a while to really kind of take on board the fact that my gender transition is done. And now in today's video, I want to reflect on the process, on the difference between how I felt at the beginning of my transition compared to how I feel now, and talk a bit about questions I'm often asked about was going through gender transition worthwhile, and was going through gender transition successful? I mean, I think it was. Before we get stuck in, if you are new around here, a massive welcome. My name is Finn and I am a gay transgender man and I share my life in recovery. If you are looking for really inspiring, uplifting, honest content about gender transition, mental health, self-development, life in recovery, you have come to the right place. If you don't want to miss any of my content, then do make sure to subscribe to my channel and to tick that notification bell. Then you'll be notified whenever I upload anything new. Regular Finnstallments. So let's look at the successfulness of gender transition. And it's important to note that successfulness means very different things to very different people. But for the purpose of talking quite generally, the entire point of gender transition, of going through gender transition, is to be more comfortable in our own skin and be free from gender dysphoria. And what's gender dysphoria? In a nutshell, gender dysphoria is the name for the distress of being assigned a gender at birth but then not relating to that gender, so you identify as a different gender to the one you were assigned at birth. Make sense? Not all transgender people experience gender dysphoria, and not every single trans person experiences it to the same degree. So the point then of gender transition is to transition so that we become more comfortable in our own skin and are free from the distress of gender dysphoria. Are you with me? Now, I have been asked in the past, and I want to answer it quickly here, the question of, is it worth going through gender transition to feel more comfortable? Would it not be better to go through therapy so that we don't have to then go through gender transition? And it is a valid question, but this particular question likely needs its own vlog. But I will say for now that it is widely recognised now that gender dysphoria, being transgender, is not a mental health condition. It is not a mental illness. So therapy, in terms of trying to cure somebody of being transgender, is as futile as conversion therapy is for lesbian, gay, bisexual people. Using therapy to cure LGBT people is not beneficial. It is harmful, and that is widely recognised now, although of course conversion therapy does still go on. The only cure for being transgender, like with being bisexual, gay or a lesbian, is to be ourselves. The only way to do that is to go through transition. So I'll say that once again. The only cure for being transgender is to be given the freedom to be ourselves. And that means for many people going through transition, in whatever that means to them, to be comfortable in their own skin. Still with me? Now, gender transition looks very different to each individual trans person. There is not just one journey, there is not just one surgery. Not all trans people take hormones, not all trans people have surgeries, and these paths are as varied as we are as human beings. Many people are very clear from the outset. As soon as they realise they are transgender, they know exactly what they need. Other people, they realise they're transgender and then they need to work out as they go forward what their needs are for their own particular gender transition. My own transition was a little bit of both. In the very beginning, when I realised that I was transgender, I absolutely knew that I needed cross-sex hormones, I needed testosterone, so that I could put my body through a male puberty and I could have all the male characteristics, the bearded face, the lower voice. I also knew that I needed top surgery. I'm very clear that I had huge gender dysphoria around my top surgery, and I shall link you to some videos about my top surgery procedure. When it came to lower surgery, in the beginning, I said there was no way I was having it done. But as my transition evolved, I became aware of a growing gender dysphoria in my lower half. And gender dysphoria can change throughout our transitions. The more comfortable we become in our own skin, the more comfortable we become in our gender, our needs for ourselves, for our body can change. And with me, what happened was I moved from a space of thinking I was a man and wanting to be a man to absolutely knowing 100% that I was a man, that I'd always been a man. And with that new awareness of myself, I then really felt a loss of my penis. My penis was missing. And so a little while into my gender transition, I made the decision to go through phalloplasty. I shall link you up to a playlist about that as well. So my needs have evolved as my transition has gone on. Those things were what transition meant to me. Still making sense? So now here I am at the end of my transition as it means to me. In 2018, I had my very final lower surgery procedure. So that's it, I am done. And so now, reflecting on how I feel now compared to how I felt back in 2011 when I first came out. And I am 1000% a different person entirely. And I don't even mean the external part of myself. I had no idea that it was possible to feel this comfortable in my own skin. Back in 2011, I was barely a year sober. I was still struggling to manage a huge amount of anxiety and low mood, depression, and it just seemed like this mammoth journey to have to come out, ask people to call me a different name, use different pronouns, come out to my family, negotiate relationships. Was my relationship going to split up? If it did, was I ever going to meet somebody who could love me for who I am? And it just felt like there was this transition mountain that I felt completely unequipped to climb and just really couldn't imagine being up there. But what happens is when you're in so much pain, at some points the weight of the pain actually is greater than the fear. And when we move into that space, there was no choice for me. I knew at this point, having realised that I was male, that I was either going to have to go back drinking my life away and hope that my life was just going to end, or I was going to transition. And in feeling so uncomfortable and dysphoric and low and suicidal, I had to take that leap of faith. And what I actually did was I took the same approach as I took with my recovery, and I just did it one day at a time. Because I've only taken it one day at a time, suddenly I'll go, wow, how did I get here? And it's the same with my gender transition, which I think is why it's taken me such a long time to do an update on here, because I was so focused on just getting through the day, just getting through appointments, getting through waiting times. All of that was so hyper-focused and so just having to kind of live moment to moment and just try and make short-term plans, that suddenly now to be in this space where I'm just me, I don't have to jump through hoops for medical procedures. I don't have to go and have people give me waiting lists and all of this other stuff. I'm just free to be me. And it's just an incredible space to be in, to see that I'm now at the top of this mountain that at one point looked pretty impossible to climb. The view from Trans Mountain is epic, and the best thing of being up here is I can shout down to those below that it's going to be alright, that you will get up here and it's going to be an amazing view. It's only now, at the end of gender transition, that I realised the magnitude of the pain I was in, because although I knew it was painful, it was also all I'd ever really known. But now to be at the end of gender transition and have a body that is free from that screaming gender dysphoria, the peace and quiet inside my body compared to the screaming hell it used to be is so profound. that I now realise just how painful that was. And it's just astounding that I'm now free of that. And sometimes I look back and wondered how I ever managed to keep on living with that amount of pain. So in terms of gender dysphoria, yes, my gender transition has been very successful because now I rarely get dysphoria. Every now and again I'll get a pang. Something will happen, like I might move in a certain way, speak in a certain way, or somebody looks at me in a certain way, and suddenly I will get a bit of a feeling that I used to get of gender dysphoria. And it's nothing like what it used to be. It's only very mild and it's quite fleeting. But those moments are getting rarer and rarer now. And I think a lot of it is that our brain takes a long time to rewire to know what our face looks like, to rewire to know how people see us. And I think that takes a while. But on the whole, at this point in my transition, I would say I'm 95% free of gender dysphoria, and those odd times where it does poke its head out, it's so mild and so fleeting, and I can actually laugh at it now because I know that I'm 100% male and I'm comfortable in who I am. But when it comes to measuring the successfulness of my personal transition, it isn't for me just the absence of gender dysphoria which makes it successful. It's also the quality of my mental well-being. And the reason I say that is because I started this journey back in 2011 with both awful gender dysphoria and really poor mental health. And now this is something that often gets quite confused by people, and that is that gender dysphoria is not a mental health condition. The distress caused by gender dysphoria can in turn cause depression and anxiety, for example. But it's actually more untreated gender dysphoria which causes mental health problems. I wrote a blog about this and I'll link to that in the description. But to explain using my own story as an example, I lived from a young age till the age of 37 not knowing I was transgender. What I did know is that I felt awful in my own skin. I was hugely anxious, hugely depressed. In not ever being able to get to the bottom of why that was, I started to drink and use drugs and abuse those things as a way to self-medicate. I also added self-harm into the mix, undereating. I was doing myself a lot of damage because I didn't know that the root of my distress was gender dysphoria. Once I realised I was transgender at the age of 37, all of that mental health made sense. But because my gender dysphoria had left itself untreated for that amount of time, not only did I have gender dysphoria, but I had a lifetime of mental health problems on top of it. Does that make sense? So for me then, measuring the successfulness of my gender transition isn't just about the absence of gender dysphoria, but also about the quality of my mental health. And whilst my gender dysphoria is much better, I still have a lot of work to do on my mental health. Now, going through gender transition is not a magic elixir. It's not a magic button. It's not going to make everything go away overnight. But what it does do is, by ridding you of gender dysphoria, you can then manage the other stuff. Once gender dysphoria is gone, I wasn't adding to my mental health problems. I wasn't needing to escape my body to self-medicate. And in the space I have inside my body now, in the peace I have inside my body now, I can do the work on my mental health that I couldn't do before. Most people take for granted that their body is their home. Our body is our main instrument. It's what we live in, it's what we sleep in, it's what we use to interact with the world, with environments, with people, to make relationships. And when that body isn't your home, when it's one that you don't recognise and one that people aren't relating to correctly, that safe home doesn't exist. And so it's impossible to do the work on ourselves, the relationship work with others, building a life, when we haven't got this stable base. So what gender transition does do is get rid of that pain in the body, making the body a home, and then we can go and do the work. And that's what I've found. That the other side of gender transition, as my dysphoria has lowered, my strength to want to take charge of my life, my desire to live, because that wasn't there before, my desire to live, my drive to have a happy life makes me do the work on my mental health. It makes it worthwhile because people are seeing me for the person I am. I can recognise myself in the mirror. And these things are making it so much easier then to face all of the other stuff that I couldn't possibly manage before. And so even though I would say I've still got some mental health challenges, they aren't a problem anymore. And if you've watched my vlogs for a while, you'll know that I actually define recovery in a very different way. When I speak about I'm in recovery, I don't mean that I'm free of all my challenges. We are humans. We live in a world. The world is up and down every day. We face lots of difficulties. We can never be challenge free. It's the nature of life. So for me, what recovery means is I might not be symptom free. I might still have periods of anxiety and low mood and all of these other things, but I've recovered the ability to live my life regardless of them. I've recovered my ability to build a new life regardless of the challenges I face. And that's what recovery means to me. I think that turned into a bit of a Finn rant. So to sum up, life this side of gender transition is absolutely incredible, beyond words what I ever thought would be possible to feel. To be this comfortable and happy in my own skin. You know, I'm a 46-year-old man with bits sagging and I'm going grey, and I can absolutely 100% love myself because I am 100% me for the first time in my life, and it's amazing. And I'm now free to just go into the world and create a life as the man I was always supposed to be. So absolutely yes, going through transition, all the pain, the frustration, the waiting times, it's all worth it, because actually at the end of it, it's all paled into insignificance now. All of that pain's just kind of disappeared, and in its place is this new freedom and happiness that is just wonderful. So absolutely yes, going through transition is worthwhile and absolutely is successful, and that cure for feeling so at odds with ourselves and uncomfortable in our own skin. I do hope that was helpful. If you have any comments or questions, you're always free to drop me a message in the section below, or to contact me on any of my social media, Twitter, Instagram. My DMs are always open and I'll happily answer your questions. If you want to see more of my videos about gender transition, I shall link you to a playlist here. And if you've got this far and you haven't already subscribed, you can do that here. Take care of yourselves, folks. See you next week. Keep on keeping on.